All right, so make sure that your block is like available to you by your mat if you've got it. But you're actually going to start standing up. So we're going to focus, well, it started off as I wanted to focus on the back of the body, and then it's kind of transformed a little bit, and we're going to slow it right down for a change, but focus on trying to find a balance between the front and the back of the body. And I will just say that the balance might not always be mirrored in the same part of the body, if that makes sense. So you might be working and feeling, oh, I can really feel my quads working in the front of my body, but I can also feel my upper back working, for example. So it might not necessarily be exactly mirrored on the body. And the other thing to bear in mind is if one part of the body is this active and the other part of the body is only this active, it might not always be a case of trying to bring this up. It might be a case of dialing this down, dialing this back. So yeah, a sense of balance between the front and the back of the body. Okay, so come to standing, Tadasana mountain pose, but with the feet about hip distance apart. So in fact, scrap the Tadasana part if that has like particular connotations for you, and just come to stand comfortably on your mat. Let your eyes close. The arms can hang at the side of the body, but if you prefer to kind of rest them or do something with your arms, take what feels best for you, but just be mindful if you have your arms or your hands held in a particular position, just make sure that it's not causing any restriction or any tightness around the shoulders or anywhere else. I'm going to start by taking your attention down to the soles of your feet. And just start to shift your weight slightly. Maybe side to side, front to back, circles, whatever you like, but just shifting the weight so you can feel that shift happening across the soles of the feet. And as you start to come back to center, back to stillness, take your time. Just make sure that the toes are spread. You can get a sense of the soles of the feet almost melting into your mat. So you're not scrunching and gripping, there's a softening and a broadening. You don't have to change anything, but just see if you can notice what's happening at the inner arch of your feet. Does it feel like it's slightly dropped in? Is there a little bit of space? I mean, you don't have to change anything, though you can choose to if you wish. And then from there, bring your attention up to your knee joints. Just notice what's happening there for a second. And then we're going to bring a bit of movement in. So maybe bending alternate knees or little bends of both knees together. And then gradually, again, coming back to some stillness. Again, noticing what's happening at the knees. Do they feel like there's a similar sensation happening in one than the other? If there's a sense of locking, could you find that tiny micro bend? Or perhaps a sensation in your knees is related to perhaps what's happening in your quad, in your thigh. Bring your attention up higher now to your pelvis, so the whole bowl of the pelvis. And again, we're going to bring in a little bit of movement. So maybe moving the pelvis side to side or forwards and backwards or circling. Noticing what sensations you meet as you move. Again, gradually bringing the pelvis back to stillness and back to center, and seeing if we can find this idea of the pelvis being heavy but just resting gently at the top of the legs, not being gripped or held too tightly. And from that easy setting of the pelvis, bringing your attention to the spine. Again, looking for that easy lift of the spine, maintaining a sense of the natural curves. And then from here, bringing attention to your breathing. And as you inhale, drawing that breath in through the nose. And as you exhale, sending that out breath all the way down through the body, down and out through the soles of the feet. So again, the in breath, in through the nose, bringing your attention back up high, and the out breath being sent down through the body, down through the feet, as if you're starting to spread out your own root system. So keep breathing in that way. Maybe just slightly slowing your breath down. And every exhale, tapping in to a downward energy, to a rooting sensation, so that hopefully, as you continue to stand and to breathe in this way, you'll find a sense of being grounded, of being quite stable, and hopefully of being calm. And just take 2 more rounds of breath like that. And as you finish your next out breath, you're going to bring one hand to your chest and one hand to your belly. It doesn't matter which way around. And now as you breathe in, you're going to really fill the lungs, allow the rib cage to open slightly, the chest to lift. The hands will move ever so slightly further apart. And as you breathe out, you're gently softening the chest down, drawing the low ribs back into the body. So the in-breath is creating an opening and lifting in the front of the body, in the ribs, and the out breath is bringing a slight softening, a slight closing. You're going to keep breathing in that way, and it might be quite a big movement, it might be really, really small, doesn't matter. But trying to keep the focus, keep your attention, keep that intention with your breath. One more round of breath like that, breathing in to allow the ribs to fill, to open, the out breath to draw them down into the body, and then releasing the arms, and with your next inhale, sweeping the arms all the way up to the ceiling. Just take a little moment there to breathe with the arms reaching the fingertips, reaching high, shoulders, wherever you want them to be. And see if you can start to tap in here to a sense of balance, of equal maybe length or equal effort through the front and the back of the body. If your feet are apart, start to bring them in towards one another so that they touch. And then on an exhale, take yourself over into a forward fold. Land the knees to bend. And if possible, the back of the neck to relax. Notice if adjusting the feet has affected your sense of stability. If you feel a little bit wobbly, then maybe spend a couple of rounds of breath, sending your out breath again down through the soles of the feet, seeing if you can find it once more a sense of being rooted, of being anchored. And then option number 1 is to lift your heels, so rise onto the balls of the feet, drop your bum down towards your heels, the hands will lift, and then with control you're going to lie yourself all the way down onto your back. Option number 2 from that forward fold will be to lift the heels, tuck one foot or one leg behind the other, and then lower yourself like a curtsy down to the mat and all the way onto your back. But however you get there, you know, I'm lying on your back with the knees bent and the feet planted. Make sure your block is to hand if you have one. As you inhale, you're going to tilt the tailbone back slightly, creating a little arch, a little lift at the low back. And as you exhale, you're going to tuck the tailbone underneath, feeling the low back just lightly flatten towards the mat. Again, the in-breath, tilting the sit bones, pressing them back into the mat, a little arch. And the exhale to tuck the tailbone and to lengthen the low back. One more time. And then allow the pelvis and the spine to find a comfortable neutral position. If you have your block, you're going to pop it long ways, if that's helpful, between your thighs. So you'll have a short edge facing your face and a short edge facing away from you. But make sure it's not too high up by the knees, bring it all the way down towards your groin. Obviously, if you haven't got a block, don't worry about it, just make sure the feet there's some space between the feet and some space between the thighs. So if you don't have your block, the legs aren't going to move too much, but you're still going to perform the same action. So you're going to squeeze in with the thighs to your block, real or imaginary, and pause. And notice where you feel that. Do you feel that activation through the back of the legs? The back body or back of the legs is engaged. Keep that squeeze, and now draw the low ribs down into the body and tuck the tailbone under. So the belly is really pulling in, so we're adding in some front body activation. Keep that squeeze with the inner thighs to engage the back of the legs. Keep that tuck of the tailbone and that pulling down of the low ribs to engage the front of the body. Keep breathing. 3, 2, 1, and release. Keep the block where it is. Just have a breath or two in neutral, and then we're going to go again. So you've got that squeeze in with the thighs. Think about your sliding scale of effort. Doesn't have to be way up towards 100%. Then low ribs down, tailbone tucked, pause, breathe. Check what's happening with the toes and the feet. If the toes are curling in, if you just lengthen or release, soften the feet. Again, release that effort, body finds neutral. If that feels like enough, you're going to stay with that. So everybody squeezing in, then low ribs down, belly button to spine, tucking the tailbone. You can stay here, or without losing any of that setup, see if you can maybe hover your feet just off your mat. 3, 2, 1, release down. Take a little breath, give yourself a moment to release. That should be quite hard work, particularly with the feet lifted. Same thing again, squeeze in with the knees. Lengthen the low back, engage those abdominals, tuck the tailbone, pause, make sure you've got that steady setup. Then seeing if you can lift the feet without letting go. If you lose, the back starts to arch, you're not squeezing in with the thighs, then put the feet down. You can always try again. 3, 2, 1, release. One last time, same setup, squeezing in, pausing, feeling those sensations, engaging the abdominals, low ribs down, tucking the tailbone, pausing, feeling those sensations. Then seeing if you can add that little lift of the feet. Can you maintain all of those actions? 5, 4, 3, 2, good, and 1. Slowly release the body, pop your blocks to one side, and from there you're going to lift the hips into the air. So you might want to adjust your feet so that lift feels a little easier, a little more comfortable. And again, thinking about that balanced effort to some degree between the front and the back of the body. And then you're going to set the hips down, and assuming that your low back is okay, it's feeling good, you're going to take the feet a little further away from you, and you're going to lift up once again. Still looking for that balanced effort, or inquiring, is it possible between the front and the back of the body? Just taking a breath or two. Bringing the hips down. If that feels like enough, stay where you are. If you've got a little bit more room to go, then bringing the feet even further away again. You can always lift the toes and just press down into the heels, if that feels more useful. Again, just a couple of breaths. Coming down once again. We're going to take a hold. So if it's feeling okay, you could bring your legs almost straight with the heels on the floor. If you want a bit of extra challenge and you've got a block, take your block, pop it towards the top of your mat. Long edge parallel to that top edge of your mat. So the long edge of the block parallel to the top edge of the mat. And your heels will be on that block. And then you'll lift up from there. If the block starts to pull back towards you, then bring your block slightly further back in towards you. But when you're ready, finding your setup, either heels on the block or on the floor, legs extended as much as you think is okay for you. And then when you're ready, pressing down to the heels, lifting the hips. We're looking for balanced effort, front and back of the body. 5, 4, 3, 2, good, and setting down. 1, awesome. Bring the knees in towards your chest. Have a little second there just to release the low back. And then when you feel ready, you're going to rock yourself up to all fours. If you want to take a couple of times, rocking up and down the back of the body, go for it. If you just want to get there, totally fine. If your block is on your mat, pop it away to one side. Once you get to all fours, we're going to warm up the wrists. We're going to spend quite a lot of time with the hands down on the mat to begin with. So all fours, spin the fingertips around, step pointing back towards your knees and your thighs. Keep the heels of the hands grounded, the neck long, and then easing the hips back towards the heels. Breathing steadily, breathing comfortably. And then flipping the hands, so back to the hands down, palms up towards the ceiling, the fingertips are still pointing back towards you. Arms fairly straight, and again, easing hips towards heels, trying not to let the back of the hands lift. Releasing, coming to a tabletop position, so shoulders over the wrists-ish, but then turn the fingertips out towards the sides of your mat, and bring the heels of the hands in a bit closer towards one another, and then gently rocking right to left. Keeping the arms quite straight, make sure the abdominals are switched on just a little so you're protecting your low back. And then just sitting back onto the heels for a second to give the hands a little shake out. And to take a few figure of eights, so interlacing the hands, figure of eights with the wrists. And changing direction. And then coming back to all fours for a few rounds of cat-cow. And again, really trying to tune into that effort, front and back of the body. Seeing if you can maintain a sense of, I want to say equality, but I don't know if that's quite the right word. But we'll go with it for now. So the in-breath, lifting your sit bones, back is arched, chest is forward. And then the out-breath, tucking the tailbone, pulling belly button to spine, pressing back of the body towards the ceiling. If you want to take more than one breath per movement, of course, that's absolutely fine. And then coming back to a neutral spine and bringing the knees in towards one another so you've got that tripod set up. Now, I want you to imagine that you've got a very small but very heavy box or weight or something like that on your mat. So very low to the ground. From this tripod position, you're going to pick up your right knee, slightly shift it forwards and flex your foot. The toes are going to stay really close to the ground. Where your heel is now, that's the top of your box. So if you send your leg up, the box is not going to go anywhere. You're going to push that heavy box towards the back of your mat with control. So hopefully you can really feel the back of the right leg working. As that leg becomes more extended, then it might lift up a little higher, because the box is magic and it suddenly gets taller. And then with resistance, you're going to bring that right knee back in again, keeping, as you go, the toes fairly low to the floor. Equal length. Is it possible? Is equal effort possible? Is it useful between the front and the back of the body here? Just once more, you're going to press back again through that right leg. And as you find that extension, pause, and your option is to lift and reach the left arm away. So making sure that we're not sinking into the low back, sinking into the right shoulder. Front of the body just as engaged as the back. Good. Releasing back to all fours. Have a moment to release the hands or sit back if you need to, but you'll do the same thing on the left side. So again, small, heavy box that magically gets taller when your leg is extended. So picking up the left foot, left knee, rather flex the foot, toes pointing down towards the floor, slow, 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 pushing that really heavy box back along the mat. Taking a moment with that leg in extension, and then with resistance, bringing it back in. And just one more time. Extending the left leg, pushing that heavy, heavy box along the floor. And as you find that extension again, little pause, trying to find that effort front and back of body, and then squeezing right arm, lifting rather, right arm reaching away. Putting the low ribs into the body, maybe thinking of slightly lengthening the low back. 3, 2, 1. Good. Coming back to all fours. Knees separate, tuck your toes, walk the hands forwards, coming into child's pose with the toes tucked for a few rounds of baby waves. So pushing from the feet, rounding the spine, a la cat pose as you come forwards. Then lifting the tailbones, arching the back, and you press with the hands, ripple hips to heels. Rounding to come forward, pressing the back of the body towards the ceiling, and then the belly dips towards the mat as you make your way back towards that child's pose. Still asking that question, still being curious about balance. And then gently coming back to all fours, back to a tabletop position. So we want to keep some stability around the shoulders, keep some stability around the low back, so we're not going to have too much like Shakira action as we go. So really make sure your front of the body is active. Extend your right leg, put the toes down. Check what's happening around the torso, nice and strong. So front of the body is definitely engaged. Let's get the back of that right leg working. So squeeze your right foot into the air, cross the leg behind you, tap the toes down to the mat. Squeeze the leg into the air without letting your low back arch. Take the leg back in line with its own hip, tap the floor. And again, lift, cross, tap, lift, open, One more time, lift, cross, tap, lift, open, tap, lift. Step your right foot outside of your right hand and just have a little moment then to get into your lunge. So whether that is back knee down, back knee lifted, if you want to maybe turn the toes out on the front leg, take it into more of a winged variation. A little second just to release a bit of that effort, maybe taking a bit of a half split to find a little more release to the back of that right leg. Bringing two hands back down to the mat, stepping back into a downward facing dog when you're ready. From your down dog, so take a bit of time, but when you're ready to move on, you're going to lift your heels high, tuck your chin to your chest, and we're rolling forwards through the spine to find your high plank. So lifted heels, chin to the chest, try and send your tailbone down to the floor, pull the tummy in, rounding through the low back, mid back, upper back, until you find your high plank position, spine becomes more neutral. Chin away from the chest, without collapsing in the low back, bring your knees down to the floor, and you're going to ripple forwards into a cobra. So bum is squeezing, the thighs and the hips come down, the chest lifts up, arms are active, maybe a little bend in the elbows, just take a breath or two before you release all the way down into your belly. Bring the forearms to the mat, coming into Sphinx pose. Make sure legs are long, tops of the feet, pressing down into the floor, maybe a couple of times, lifting one leg, trying to send it a little further away from you, lengthening, lengthening, lengthening. But you're going to lift and think of sending the chest forward and letting the ribcage open into that Sphinx pose with your inhale. And as you exhale, you're going to draw the low ribs back into the body, engage the abdominals. You might feel the glutes squeeze as well. There's a bit of that action of tucking the tailbone. In breath, like when we were standing, the ribs open, the chest lifts, or in this case reaches forwards. As you exhale, chest softens down, low ribs in, abdominals engaged, glutes switch on. A few more times. The in-breath opens, and the out-breath closes the chest, the front of the body. This time, same thing, the in-breath opens, reaches the chest forward. The out-breath is going to draw you up into a three-quarter plank, starting by drawing the low ribs in, belly button to spine, tucking the tailbone, and then the thighs lift, the knees stay on the floor. If anything, keep trying to tuck your tailbone more and round your back of the body like cat pose. 5, 4, 3, 2, good. And releasing back down onto your belly. Just take a little moment to rest there. So forearm on top of forearm or hand on top of hand. Maybe rocking the hips side to side. And when you feel ready, planting the hands and making your way up and back to a downward facing dog. In your down dog, thinking about that balance, front to back of the body. And I've been talking predominantly about balanced effort, but also balanced space or a balance of ease. From your down dog, lift your heels, chin to your chest as you roll forwards through the spine to send the tailbone to the floor, rounding the low back, the mid back, upper back, find your high plank position. And then from there, super slow, super controlled, stepping the feet forwards and lowering down to all fours. Check in, make sure your setup feels appropriate for you. Stabilize low back, so low ribs in, nice and long in the low back. Send your left toes to the back of your mat. Again, staying stable. You're going to lift your left leg into the air. Don't let the back arch. Cross it behind you and tap the toes to the floor. Lift the left leg, take it back in line with its own hip, toes tap the floor. And again, lift, cross, tap, lift, open, tap. One more more time. Lift, cross, tap. Try and keep the back of the neck long. Lift, open, tap. Good. Lift. Step left foot outside of left hand, and again, you've got a bit of time in your lunge to use it in any way that you want. And again, when you feel ready, stepping your way back into a downward facing dog. And then keeping the toes tucked under as you lower the knees down to the mat. So child's pose with the toes tucked. From that child's pose, you're going to roll forwards onto your belly. So you're going to start by pressing into the feet, rounding the spine towards the ceiling as the hips move away from the heels and come forwards. As the hips start to, or the pelvis starts to come forwards and down towards the mat, the chest is going to lift. Again, we're thinking front and back of the body as you ripple all the way onto your belly. Nice. Once you've got there, take the arms out in front of you like a wide V. If you haven't got that space, either shuffle back or take like cactus arms. From there, you're going to lengthen and lift your right arm and your left leg. Then you're getting a little bit longer, creating more distance between the right fingertips and the left toes. Again, that question of front and back of body. Releasing down and switching sides. Front and back of body. Nice. Releasing down, plant the hands under the chest. You're going to press your hips to your heels and keep walking the hands back behind you. Hands will plant with the fingertips pointing in towards you, so you're slightly leaning back. From there, roll the shoulders back. Lift the chest, send it forwards, and slightly pull your tailbone back towards your arms. So you're creating a slightly deeper arch in the low back, and perhaps more stretch across the front of the shoulders. Good. As you release, the hands are going to come to prayer, so push the floor away, hands come to prayer, tuck your toes, and lift your bum away from your heels. You're going to move into a little camel pose, So think about your setup, and again, think about that effort front and back of the body. So the hips are definitely squeezing forwards, back body is working. Abdominals are definitely drawing in and up, creating that sense of lift and space at the low back. Shoulders are rolling back, upper back is engaged. Spaciousness across the front of the chest. Good, nice, guys. Bring the spine back to neutral, crown of the head rises towards the ceiling, reach the arms high. Shift the weight onto your left leg, and slow as you can, step your right foot towards the top of your mat. Keep your back toes tucked under, and I want you to be able to push down and away through the feet. That makes sense. So we're creating this kind of bracing action. And if instinctively you feel like you can lift your back knee off the mat, you're in a good position. If, like me, I'm pushing and my back thigh feels kind of a bit weak and a bit compromised, I'm going to make my lunge a bit shorter and a bit wider and see if that helps. And what we're going to do is slow with control, push down through both feet equally and lift the back knee away from the mat. And then with that same level of control, that same balance, front and back leg, lower the back knee down again. You can always try adjusting the feet, adjust the position of the legs, see if that makes it better or worse, same thing. Oh Lord. Pushing down equally, trying to lift slowly and with ease. Good, again, slow, lower down. Make sure the glutes are definitely working. Or switched on. One more time, lifting, rising, and then stepping, bringing that left knee forwards. Sorry, bringing the left knee to your chest, find a balance. From here, you're going to step back to a long lunge. Send the left toes to the very back of your mat and bring your left hand to the top of your mat. Drop your back knee, readjust your right foot if you need to. Your right arm is going to reach forward, it's going to circle up towards the ceiling and back behind you, and you're going to squeeze your left heel in towards your bum, flexing the foot, and don't catch your foot with your hand. You want that activation in the left hamstring. Sorry if cramp ensues. If you can, keep squeezing it in for 3, 2, 1. Good. Slowly release. 2 hands to the top of the mat. Step back, downward facing double dog, guys. Sorry if you've got cramp. If you need to take a little bonus hamstring stretch for that left leg, then please do. Nice. From that downward facing dog, we're going to take a full waving vinyasa, rolling vinyasa. So lift the heels, chin to your chest, rolling forwards through the spine. Take your time for that articulation, rounding low back, mid back, upper back. From your high plank position, the hips keep moving down, bum is squeezing. Spine is long as the chest lifts, upward facing dog. Take a breath in there, and then starting by drawing the chin to the chest, the lower ribs into the body, try and roll back up into your high plank. Push strong with the arms. Neutralize the spine when you find that plank position. Option 1, stay here. Option 2, one chaturanga press. Into a downward facing dog. And slowly lowering the knees down, keeping the toes tucked under in your child's pose. As the knees find the floor, the hips find the heels, push from the feet, rounding the spine to come forwards, rolling all the way onto your belly with control. Front and back of the body. It's active, nice, guys. Good, Sally. Excellent. Once you get there, untuck the toes. Bring the arms back behind you. You can choose to interlace the hands or just keep the palms separate, but that same squeezing action. Lift the chest, press the feet down into the mat. Keep the feet on the floor. Front and back of the body. Active, equal. See if you can lift the legs. Again, still thinking front of the body, reaching forwards, back of the body nice and strong. And again, as you release, bring the hands underneath the shoulders, press your hips back to your heels, keep walking the hands back, back, back behind you. You can either take the same thing again, so the hands are planted, rolling the shoulders back, lifting the chest, your bum stays on your heels, but you're tractioning or tilting the pelvis, pulling the tailbone back towards your hands, or you can play with lifting the hips, opening up a little more, perhaps through the quads and through the hip flexors. Good. Gently releasing, bringing the hands to prayer. Tuck your toes under, lift your bum away from your heels. Again, we're moving into that camel pose. So take your time. Not necessarily how far back can I go, but can I find a sense of equal support, equal space? Just changing that focus, changing that intention just slightly. And as you bring the spine back to neutral, reach the arms up towards the ceiling. Shift the weight onto your right leg and slow, 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 step your left foot towards the top of your mat. Again, we're looking for that equal push between 2 feet to lift and lower the back leg. We're trying, if possible, to avoid a big shift forwards or any kind of sudden movements. We want to try and be really, really smooth. So when you're ready, pressing into 2 feet, squeezing up, and that same level of control to lower down. And again, slow lift, and slow lower. Again, try adjusting the feet if you want to. I might have given you a bum steer before when I was talking about making the stance shorter. I'm not actually sure. So I'm in a longer position now, and I think that might be easier. But that one wasn't. Next time, the back knee is lifted. Little pause, then bring that right knee through to your chest. Find your balance top of the mat. And then you're finding a long lunge. Step the right toes to the back of the mat, and the right hand comes down at the front. Dropping the back knee. Just make sure that left foot is far enough forward so the heel is on the floor. Left arm is reaching forwards, up, over and back. Don't touch your foot, but squeeze your right heel into your bum. Pull the right toes down to the floor so you're really flexing that foot for 5, 4, 3, 2, good, and 1. Gently release, step back, downward facing dog for a rolling vinyasa. So really trying to articulate the spine. That's going to take time and effort, so don't rush that transition as you lift the heels, really pull the tummy in, try and roll forwards through the spine, coming through that plank position. The arms stay quite straight as the hips, with control, ease down, the chest lifts up. Breath in that up dog. Then pushing strong with the arms, low ribs in for the bum squeeze as you try and peel yourself back up into your high plank, where you can stay, or you can take a chaturanga press before moving back into a downward facing dog. Awesome. From your down dog, you're going to lift your right leg, step it towards the top of the mat, coming up into a high lunge. And from that high lunge, turning 90 degrees to your left to come into goddess pose with the toes out and the heels in. Push down through the feet, the legs become straight, the arms reach up, and then bending the knees and doing like a lat pull down action with the upper body. Elbows pull wide, upper back nice and engaged. Good, push the floor away, straighten the legs, reach the arms. Maybe that's an inhale. And as you exhale, pull down, sit down. 2 more times. Again, we're thinking about that effort front and back of the body. Awesome. Next time you're in that goddess squat, stay low, come onto the ball of your back left foot, so you're coming into a high lunge towards the top of your mat. Nice. From here, fingertips are going to find the floor. Walk the hands forwards. Shift into a standing split. So pressing the weight onto that right leg, lift the left leg high. Is it possible to notice or think about anything other than the back of that right leg? Again, we're looking for a question of balance. But slowly, you're going to bend both knees, tuck your left knee into the back of your right, let the weight shift back into your right heel. Now see if you can take your arms off the floor. Add to that, can you draw the low ribs into the body and the belly away from the right thigh? Come all the way to standing, bringing the left knee through to your chest. Good, and then set both feet down about mat width apart, toes turned out, heels in. Hands come to prayer. Take a breath in. Woo! As you breathe out, squatting down, Malasana, wide squat. Keep the hands in prayer. As you take an exhale, lift the hips, come into a forward fold. The knees don't have to straighten. As you inhale, sit the bum down into your squat, bum down, head up. As you exhale, fold, bum up, heads down. 2 more times with control. Keep the palms pressing in towards one another. Once you've done those 2 more rounds, from your forward fold, release your hands to the mat, stepping back to a down dog for a rolling vinyasa, or a regular vinyasa, or a breather, as you see fit. You're taking that rolling vinyasa, really trying to focus on creating that movement. You're going to take a lot of effort. Nice with the abdominals. Awesome work, guys. Spin myself around, but once you are done, don't rush. But you'll be back in a downward facing dog. Nice, Jenny. Left leg will lift from there, and you'll step your left foot towards the top of the mat. Really good, you guys. Coming up into a high lunge. Turning 90 degrees to your right, coming into your goddess pose once again. This time we're going to hold in that squat position and hold that pull down effort of the arms. So hopefully you can feel the back of the shoulders and the arms working. You can probably feel the thighs working. Make sure the glutes are engaged as well. Pressing down into the feet. Stay low in the legs, come into your high lunge. Left foot is at the front. Come onto the ball of that back right foot. From there, fingertips dive down to the top of the mat. Little step forwards as you find your standing split. Again, give yourself some time to get into your standing split, to move if you want to, then to ask that question of the front and the back of the body. Slowly though, two knees are going to bend, tuck the right knee into the back of the left calf. Feel the weight shift back into your left heel. Take the arms off the floor, draw your low ribs into the body, belly button away from your left thigh. Come all the way to standing, right knee to your chest. Oof. And then set the feet down about mat width apart once again. Same thing, hands are in prayer. The inhale is taking you down into your Malasana, and the exhale is taking you into your forward fold. If you want to make it a bit more challenging, bring the toes a little more forwards, and maybe bring the feet closer together. 3 or 4 times. Keep the hands pushing in towards one another. And again, once you've done 3 or 4 times, or just as many times as you feel you'd like to, then step back to your down dog for your vinyasa of choice. Excellent. And do give yourself a little bit of time in a child's pose, just coming down for a little bit of rest. Excellent work. From that child's pose, you're going to ripple, roll forwards all the way onto your belly, so bum comes away from the heels, round the spine. Think cat pose, and then that change as the hips come forwards, the chest lifts, controlling your descent down into your tummy. So we're going to take a bit of bow pose. So making sure that you are as comfortable as is possible. Bending the knees. Either pointing the toes and catching the tops of the feet, or if that puts any pressure on your knee joints, kneecaps, then flex your foot, reach back and catch the front of the ankle. So I'll leave that up to you, but finding your grip. And when you're ready, kicking the feet into the hands. Definitely back of the body is working here, glutes, hamstrings, the upper back as well. Trying to find a bit of length through the low back. Drawing the belly button into the spine, up to the chin. When you're ready, easing back down and taking a moment again to just rest. Oof, to let all of that settle. When you're ready, if everything's feeling hunky-dory, you're going to go for a second round. So bending the knees, catching the feet. And remember that sliding scale of effort. Kicking feet into hands. Keep breathing. Asking that question of balance. And again, releasing when you're ready. And giving your body that time to settle, to neutralize. From here, flip yourself over onto your back. So if, for example, to see your screen, you need to flip yourself around as well, so your head's at the other end of your mat. Do that also. Although it's going to be pretty simple from here, to be honest. So you're going to come down to lie on your back. We are going to take another back bend, but we're going to focus a bit more on stability. So knees bent, feet planted, hips come up into the air. Just have a little second to check in with how all of that is feeling. Make sure the feet aren't too wide. You shuffle them in a little bit closer, and then you're going to take a slow march with the feet. So lifting one leg and lifting the other, trying to keep the pelvis stable and thinking front and back of the body. If you want to make the movement bigger, don't think foot up to the ceiling, but think knee or thigh in towards chest. So perhaps now not only that inquiry about the balance front to back of body, but also the balance left to right as well. I feel much more stable on my left leg than I do on my right. So for me, where do I feel like I know where that weakness is? Can I maybe try and actively engage a little more through my right glute? Or to push firmer through the right foot, or to draw the abdominals in? Get a little bit maybe of trial and error as you move. When you're ready, bringing the hips down once again. Allowing the body to rest. Taking the feet about mat's width apart and just windscreen wiping the knees one side to the other. So moving towards your final Shavasana, obviously we've done quite a lot to activate and engage the glutes and the hamstrings. If you feel like you need a bit of a stretch, then of course you can bring either legs up to the ceiling. You can take it into plow pose, the toes on the floor behind you, or a seated forward fold. If you're feeling pretty happy with that kind of tension, I think has a negative connotation, but that kind of activation through the back of the body, then maybe you'll skip your forward fold. But it's up to you. There might be something else that you prefer to take before you get into your final Shavasana, because that is where we're heading. When you are ready, making your way towards that Shavasana to find some stillness. Trying to find a position to rest in that brings physical ease. Just a reminder that that doesn't mean that it will necessarily feel easy or comfortable for the duration of this part of the practice. But how do we respond if we find ourselves fighting with an urge to move, with a physical discomfort, or maybe a mental kind of frustration? How do we react? Can we observe those responses? But not give in to them? Is that possible? Start to become a little more aware of your breathing. Breathing in through the nose. And as you breathe out, sending that breath, that energy down through the body, the mat, the surface beneath you. Every exhale, bringing with it that sense of weight, that downward energy, a sense of rooting, stabilizing. And when you're ready, gently beginning to move the body again. Starting that transition out of stillness, back into movement, into your post-practice body. Very gently making your way to a comfortable seat. You find that seat with the eyes closed. Just pausing, checking in, maybe looking for gentle but equal lift through the front and the back of the body. Just taking a second to reflect. Is there anything or anywhere else that you maybe could take those same inquiries of balance? Or perhaps recognizing or acknowledging again that balance doesn't always come from making more effort with the weakest or the quietest part. It might come from actually dialing or paring the other side down or back. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. I hope you're feeling good and kind. If you've got anything like important that you need to be a bit sprightly for, you might want to just have a little shake or jump around for 30 seconds or so to shake that energy up. But yeah, have a lovely weekend, guys, and hopefully I'll see you next Saturday either on Zoom at 8 or maybe in the park at 11. Okay. Bye, guys. Have a lovely weekend, a lovely week.